Hello, it's February 2022, and before I get into this video, some people have asked, for example, about hygiene, keeping clean, especially during the winter, so I'm just going to share that in this next little short video clip. If you want to skip over this, then just go to this time here in the video and just bypass it all.
Okay, people were asking about my shower setup in the winter time, and there it is. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, but this will warm up the shower tent. What I call the shower tent. It's actually a nice fishing hut, enough that I can do the essentials. You can see it's all frozen, and behind me is the toilet. You can see that's how cold it is, and you can see there's my, you know what. So anyway, so I just thought I'd share upon request. Not an easy life, and this unit is awesome, but it's not meant to be used in the winter. It freezes really easy, so I have to make sure that's nice and warm, and just when I'm ready to hook it all up, I gotta work really fast so it doesn't freeze up. Anyway, that's it.
It's not easy sacrificing everything, trying to do good for the world, but I digress. Anyway, moving on with the point of this video, I would like to highlight something that I've seen a few people post videos on, and that has to do with, for example, having lawyers and such people for the movement of rubber as a descriptive. And I just want to reiterate, I've said this over the years, many years, as well as even the past few years, that a lot of people don't realize one important fact about retaining, for example, a lawyer. And this is not a diss against the profession or any individuals. I'm just going to highlight some facts that a lot of people don't know or don't realize or forgot. That when a lawyer, they are an officer of a court first, and their allegiance is to the court before anything else. Now, yes, a lawyer is supposed to look after, represent their client or clients as best as they can. However, they're still bound by being an officer of the court first, and no one that is in practice will jeopardize, let alone sacrifice, their career for example, a particular movement and go against the status quo. They work within the boundaries. Now, even when you have, putting aside retaining a lawyer for the current movement of rubber, a good advocate, as a descriptive, is one that thinks outside the box, who will push and sometimes even go past the limits that they are bound by. And this is what distinguishes the few from the many in that profession, to be able to and willing to go that extra mile as a descriptive. And the problem is, and I've said this before in other videos, posts, and even comments, you may even have, say for example, an advocate that supports, who totally agrees with the cause. They're still bound to keep their profession, to go along with the status quo to a certain degree. In the videos that I have seen so far, there's really nothing that that any of these advocates had said that's not very straightforward. Now, I've highlighted over the past even 2 years, saying that what if you have a judge, a court, and a judge is still a lawyer, and They just have a different governing body to answer to, another governing body to answer to. And, you know, I've said for any profession, at what point does someone become more human than human to not have, say, their biases and so forth impact their profession? Again, any profession, pick one. So if you're up against a judge, a court, that, for example, in this case, has accepted whatever is being imposed, then that bias is going to come through, say, on any ruling. Okay? There's really not much that you can do to change that. Now, people say, well, there's appeals. Well, again, I'm going to reiterate, the basics of an appeal is judicial error. In other words, a court erring in law. And when you have a system like the courts and, for example, prosecutors and the governing bodies of, say, lawyers are all controlled by, as a descriptive, government, or they're highly influenced by government. And then we have, that would segue into political interference. We see this all the time, daily. And I've highlighted this in many videos, including my case, where you have political interference where innocent people must be found guilty to preserve the illusion of justice and to preserve the perception of integrity of those directly or indirectly involved with the justice system, to maintain public trust. Now, these things are very paramount. So when you're going up against the government, there will be political interference. And so many people wanting to write, for example, to MPs, members of parliament here in Canada, or if you're in a different country, whatever it's called in your country, and it's going to the very people who are imposing, for example, the injustice or the wrongs. People are asking for them to reconsider. Some irony there. So I just want to really highlight that a lot of people are still default through social conditioning, really by no fault of people, because people have spent their lifetime being socially conditioned, socially engineered to turn to authority types, any authority types, for help. And really, in the situation where, for example, with current worldwide events and what's being imposed, it's really not going to happen. It might appear, especially in the beginning, to a certain degree, but after a certain point, these people are part of the system, and they want to, for example, keep their jobs, keep their titles, and that really becomes the focus for many people in these professions. Again, I'm not saying this disrespectfully, or I'm not saying anything negative towards the professions or these people. I'm just simply highlighting facts, formerly being part of that very system. And I've seen, for example, the injustices on two sides of the table. I have that to bring, that first-hand knowledge to bring. I offer that. Again, I'm not stating what people should say, think, or do, and I just want to be very clear, I'm not being disrespectful to anyone who are still part of that profession, but you have to know what you're up against. And that's really been my whole point. A lot of people think that, well, that's just being negative and everything else. And so any of these lawyers that are being retained to represent or help the movement of rubber, people need to be aware that that is only going to go to so far. And I've seen over the years, let's real quick segue for a moment to, well, I'll leave that for a different video. Now I'm having everyone confused, sorry. But yeah, I just wanted to share that for what it's worth. Going to the courts and everything else, political interference is the main obstacle, and you're not going to get around it. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And there was another very important point that I wanted to make, and it just popped out of my head. So I'm just going to interject here for a moment that there's also the social justice aspect of what's happening in the world today. And I've said many times since this began, this is the world's largest social justice movement that we know of. It's worldwide, and the people who are supporting what's being imposed are the majority. And I know for a lot of people, when they see photographs or videos of huge crowd gatherings or whatever is going on, lineup of vehicles, it can be very deceiving to think that, well, yes, that's a high number, but when you actually contrast the number of people at these events, for example, there's still, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the population. And even where we see a lot of people assuming even bigger numbers is with these social media groups and everyone being on the same page, for example, on various things. And it creates the illusion that there's more people on, say, for example, one side than there really is. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. I'm also going to interject here that, yes, there are, for example, laws and constitutions and stuff that people rely on, the very things that are given to the people by the people imposing. Here's the problem, though, because laws, even constitutions and everything, are circumvented daily. And I've highlighted this, how this precedent is set with the countless of daily cases that occur every day, everywhere, of injustice. And not only they're circumvented, but can be completely ignored, for example, with rulings and everything else. And once that is moving forward, there's really no recourse that the people or an individual has to rectify that. Basically, the rules of the game, they change to suit whatever it is that they want, for example, an agenda. And a lot of people have to accept this reality because it happens every day. And this is why, for example, and I've said this many times, more than 50%, way more than 50% of the people convicted of anything are actually innocent. Now, nobody cares about that because, well, it doesn't hit home for them. But what we're seeing on a worldwide scale, now it's knocking on their doors, on your doors. And so this type of injustice that happens all the time to all sorts of people, including myself, is now at your doorstep. And the final thing I'm going to interject here is, and I've highlighted this especially over the past few years, is peripheral laws are being used to enforce perhaps things that are not laws themselves. And a lot of people are trying to find this reality. People, for example, I'm just using this as a common example, when people were being asked to leave a private property like a shopping center or something and being charged with trespass, there's a peripheral law there that's being used to enforce things that, for example, that are not just. And enforcement of everything, ultimately, there's a threat of violence by those who have the monopoly on violence. And contrast this with the social conditioning. And again, I'm not promoting anything here. I'm just highlighting some facts, some hard facts. Contrast that with people being socially conditioned, socially engineered to be peaceful when they rant, for example. And I'm not advocating violence, but I'm just simply trying to highlight the difference between those who are imposing, who impose with a threat of violence, with a monopoly on violence, against the common person who think completely differently. In a few videos ago, I believe I highlighted, using Black Pilled video by Devin Stack, how those imposing, the ruling class, the elites, call them whatever you would like, they have their own culture, they have their own ways of thinking and doing things, which are completely different to the common person. So I just wanted to share all this, again, not stating or implying anything, just highlighting the facts as well as observations from a personal and professional perspective. When I remember it, I will definitely, as I usually do. Anyway, just things to think about. I'm not trying to be negative about anything. I'm just simply sharing reality, a reality that a lot of people have a hard time accepting, and I get that. So take what you will from this. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Can't remember. I sort of touch up on that in the third video of today, but tomorrow morning's video, I just heard a noise. Something threw something at the truck.